like, if we could, to take advantage of that. Ask the city manager, starting in his part of the operations report. And the first thing is a utility billing update. And I think everybody has a huge interest in this. And I just might preface their comments in saying that I think there is a correlation between bringing Peter on board and the number of complaints that and calls and emails that I've received, and I think the other council members have also received since he's come on board addressing this issue. And the public needs to know we're committed to it, and I think they've seen that, and I think we've made giant steps forward. I don't know where we are, and we'll find out where we are, but I think we've made giant steps forward in getting this issue resolved, so thank you very much.
Mayor Keith Selman, interim city manager, you're correct. We continue to find diagnostic issues in the system, and here to present our findings and what we've accomplished over the last couple of weeks is Peter Collins, and to give a brief update and also to provide a PowerPoint presentation.
Good morning, Council. Peter Collins has been working on the billing system, and I have an update for you today. As the city manager said, we are analyzing what happened and then reviewing and asking the vendor to cooperate with us so we are provided accurate information so we can actually make sound business decisions in order to correct different scenarios. As you look at the first slide that's up on the screen, this is in reference to the no bills. We've made corrections to the no bills where I've spoke about it in previous meetings, but wasn't comfortable with the other issues that may cause different scenarios for it to occur. So we met with Infor and also staff from the billing office to determine the different kind of conditions that we were actually seeing and experience, that where we would see different types of billing bills not being produced. So there was 3 occurrences that were pretty prevalent. The first one is obviously, since go live, you never received the bill. And in that number, we pointed out 853 counts. Now this can be part of what I reported earlier of no bills, around 800 accounts that had the cycle, for the billing cycle missing. I just wanted the vendor to give me everything that never received the bill, regardless about billing cycle or anything like that. Now, these reports that I'm explaining today, we're validating the data in the reports because it can be duplicates, it could be a condition that maybe doesn't reflect it. So there's actually staff, as we speak, working on validating the information in the reports so we can manage to it correctly and not chase a bunch of rabbit trails and waste time, and meanwhile we don't solve the root cause problems. The second one, and this one I believe you guys have discussed in previous meetings or read in the news, I've received some bills for a couple of months. All of a sudden I don't receive a bill. And the next month I don't receive a bill, but then I start receiving them again. We call that sporadic billing. And that's directly related to no meter read. And if you remember, we talked about the catch-all bucket that if you don't have valid accounts or there's 11,000 exceptions, no meter reads, not all of them were truly no meter reads. This here is caused because there was no meter read. The billing cycle was missed, and then all of a sudden it started picking up again because it actually got a meter read in 2 months or a month. It might have skipped a month. We have identified 2,532 of those. It's not saying that every month they didn't receive a bill. What we're saying there is somebody could experience maybe a skip in the billing, or maybe got it 1 month and then they didn't get it and they got it next one. As far as this, we can identify, we know what's happening there, and we can correct that situation. And I'll be talking about the MTUs and not getting meter reads here later on in my presentation. The last one actually has to do what we call consolidated consumption bills. They actually did receive the read-in, but the bill wasn't produced. And what happens with that is that, say I get my bill January and February, I don't receive a bill on March, April, and then I get it in May. Actually, the 2 months that were missed get clumped into that one bill. It gets consolidated. Well, the bill does go out, but the issue with that is that some people are moved to a higher level of consumption because it's in that 1 month, and then they could be overcharged, and there may be a rare case we may be undercharging. But there's 19,027 of those that exist. So at the first swipe, it would look like this is bad news. No, this is good news because the analysis is working. We're drilling down, doing our due diligence to correct the issue. And like I made the commitment, I'll report the good with the bad. But as far as I view this, we can correct these. We can correct these situations to prevent them from happening again. So I want to say that the utility billing staff has done a good job in working with me closely, listening to me, and also working with the vendor to produce this information. Now we go to the next step. What is validated, and once it's validated and we're dealing with accurate data, how are we going to address it with our customers? That's the first part of my briefing. The second part that did contribute, I believe, to the second report of no bills because of no meter readings is that every month, as we talked before, there's an exception queue that says no meter readings. And in this case, we know that we have over 5,000 MTUs that are not producing meter readings. We know that. But last in September, there was like 11,000. So what's that gap there that's causing it? Well, you have to remember the first time I spoke with you was 14,000 in that month. So staff every month has to go through that queue in a manual process, review it, and try to address what's ever in that queue. With that said, after analyzing the data flow and mapping it all out, this is two things that were major that we actually did find. The first thing is that we have meters that are being requested by Infor for meter readings from the program STAR. Well, we have meters, we have customers or accounts that will never have an MTU. It will never be a reading. It will never happen. And these are like your bulk water, compressed gas, natural gas. So those are just some examples. Well, the utility billing staff went through and we identified all the meters, and we roughly have at this point 700 meters that have been reoccurring in the queue every single month that wasn't necessary to even be there in the first place because they would never have an automatic meter reading from the meter system. So with that said, we're able to block those out from being requested through the program Infor, and that's almost accomplished as we speak. And it's being tested, and we'll have it for the next billing cycle. We'll start here soon. So that's 700. The other part was, from the very beginning, we were told, I don't know if this became an urban legend or what, that in the request that Infor makes for meter readings from STAR, it was all active accounts. Well, diving down and just trust but verify, and it turns out that's not a true statement. There's inactive accounts that are downloaded too. So you may say, well, why do we care about inactive accounts and why are we requesting meter reads? The reason for that is that if Infor gets back a meter read for an inactive account, then it goes into what's called unauthorized usage queue, and it gets looked at. But the other ones, inactive accounts that have no meter reading, that got clumped together in that one big 11,000 grouping of no meter read. So what does it mean? It means we had inactive counts that don't have any consumption or a current meter read that was about 3,700. So that means every month, if you add those two together, 4,400 no meter reads were clogging up the queue to where staff has to physically go into each one to find out what it is, and that process is just repeat itself. Plus, if you take the 5,000 MTUs that aren't provided any meter reads, which are valid, and then there's still about 2,000 I haven't finished identifying yet, but I should have that soon. So when you add it all together, the workload is phenomenal. Every month that staff went to work on your billing cycle, they were last in the race. I mean, they had 10,000 no exceptions basically going in each month that they had to deal with and physically try to look at it and stay ahead of everything else that was going on. So we have corrected that, not to the point I want to see it, but we have a workaround that staff will not have to go into those no meter reads with no consumption and be able to be freed up by eliminating 4,400 and be able to go through the rest that's there. And I'll go to my second page. Let me see. Sometimes doing presentation is like trying to get the copier to work. So let's talk about what we're doing next steps. So basically, I'm in my 4th week, I think, beginning. The thing is that when I first got here, I immediately recognized that we were in pretty bad shape. And I remember calling the city manager on a Thursday morning saying there's some action that we need to take immediately, and we basically went into a triage phase. So we addressed numerous high critical issues, which I brought to you early on, and we have been stabilizing the system to where I would declare it a fragile stability. We need to stay on top of it, and now we need to get into what I would call a project recovery mode. And why are we there in a project recovery? Because I feel that the project didn't really come to an end. It never went into production. We have these serious ongoing issues that some have been put to bed, we're managing to, we're identifying, but we have to do a full assessment of Infor. And what does that mean? What did we buy? What's implemented? What is any workflow issues? What are all the known issues to the software package? And then go ahead and analyze that, and then let's bring closure to this. Let's go ahead and manage to what is identified as a true issue, improve workflow, and ensuring that we got our money's worth from what we bought, that we implemented all our modules, and if not, why didn't we? So that is really the next step, is to move into what's called project recovery. And then by the time we're done with this process, we'll continue working with the utility billing system in parallel. Then we'll have a stable system and a true production system at that time. So another issue that we're addressing is the water audits. So with the water audits, we need staff to obviously go replace the MTUs. Work closely with the water department to say, how can we actually streamline the process? So we have a little bit over 100 now to actually do. So we're going to take a two-phase approach. So we send out a team, and what they do is they go out and they do an initial assessment of the location. Is my meter okay? Is the meter okay? Excuse me. Meter, the MTU, the transmitter. Is there a leak there on the city? A number of different other issues. And if there is, we'll fix it right there and then. Leave a tag on the front door if nobody's home. Hey, we came by. This is what we found. And if you have any other questions, please call this number and press the city number, and then press number 3, say you got a tag, and then resolution will be able to talk with them. And if they still feel they need somebody to come out, we'll schedule an appointment then and they can go out. If we don't find any errors or any issues, Then what happens is we will place a tag on the door saying we were there, these are the things we've done. And also on the tag, we modified it a bit. It lists as possible water leaks sources. So you can review them and say, well, maybe I should look at the flapper valves in the toilet or sink or whatever. But then they can call the city. They'll end up at resolution. They'll talk through it. And then all of a sudden, if they need somebody to go there, they'll be scheduled for somebody to come out, and they'll go ahead and see what they can do to help the customer to see if they can help them locate the reason for the leak. The reason why we do it in 2 phases, why not go out and fix as quick as possible if we have a problem on the city side instead of waiting for a scheduled appointment? So that's why we're doing it in 2 different phases. So we have a lot of work in progress. One of the items we're working on, we have to move from what's called the gas summer rate to the winter gas rate. So I believe we have to start that on the 20th of this month, and believe me, we are micromanaging that and testing it extensively. And again, the people at a utility billing and the support from the vendor is that we have a whole different test area. We're making the changes and we're validating that, yes, that the rate is accurate and that we're not going to have a repeat of history, because it was kind of difficult the last time this was done, I believe back in May and June. Adjustments had to be made to the bills because of it. We're not going to repeat history. And that's the thing here. We learn of things that should not be repeated, and we're preventing it from being repeated again. The next thing is, there's about 2,000 MTUs, the transmitters that are on the water meter. It is not the water meter. It's the transmitter on the water meter. We have about 2,000 of those for water, and I didn't break this up clear enough, and I realize and I apologize for that. There's 2,000 met with water. They are out in the field aggressively correcting this situation, and we have already training. We started ramping it up a lot more last week, so at this point we probably knocked it down by 200 or 300 of them, but the commitment from the water department is that they're going to keep marching on this and get this put to bed. There are some limitations that we're addressing to where when the meter is within the yard, in the backyard, and it's locked, or you can't get in there, nobody's home, we got to work closely with the police chief, said he would assist us to code that we got to get in there to read the meters and repair these meters. There's been some that we haven't read for quite a while because of this reason. It's access, and we need the access to it. The other ones that go real quickly are the ones in the front of the house, and then you have the ones in the back is the alley. So it does take some time to go ahead and address these, but I'm confident we have training for the water department. There's a good team, energetic team, and they're ready to just keep going forward and get this job done. And being that this is an enterprise application, they realize the importance of their contribution to the whole process upstream and the final output, a reliable bill that's accurate to the customer. With that said, we have about 3,000 gas meter MTUs, because I always said it was 5,000. So we have about 3,000, and working very closely with the gas department. Their situation is a little bit different. And what's different about it, there's a large number of meters, gas meters, that need to be changed out that will take a process, take time to do. Maybe about an hour for each one. The gas gets turned off to the house, the meter gets installed. Once the gas is turned back on, they have to go in and relight everything in the house, any pilot lights, or if there's a problem found, it's going to need to be dealt with by the homeowner. But that's going to be part of the MTU replacement process, is that they actually got to replace some of the meters, and that's more time consuming than the water department. And at my next briefing, I can bring you some accurate timelines as far as with replacing the gas. Back up to the water meters, we're projecting out February 2019 to have them all put to bed. That's a realistic target date, but we always try to manage to bring that in, and we'll do our best to shorten that time span. But it's like we say, every MTU that actually does this job of reporting the meter to the system automatically decreases the work upstream for everybody involved. We have the mini upgrade that I spoke about before with STAR, which is the collection software, the server that collects the meter readings. There is an exception file that throws everything into no meter reads. Their modification is that if a request for a meter read is requested and it doesn't meet the validation routine, it's going to tell me what the error is. So that will help me put to bed the other 1,700 to 2,000 that we just don't know exactly what's causing it. And that's within the black box of STAR. The other ones I was able to figure it out without them. But this one I really need to know why it's actually failing. With that said, the DCU project, the staff has been trained last week. We had some good training. They're moving forward. The work continues for the health check, location, attaching it to the network or moving it off the Wi-Fi system onto either fiber or using a cell phone, data link, which will be more reliable as far as data transmissions going back to the server, which would be the STAR system. I just want to note that council item number 10 today supports the flexibility of being able to move the DC units due to cabling and have that as a tool bag that also benefits other operational needs of the city today with IT. Are there any questions today?
Ms. Opal.
Mr. Collins, I have to say that I'm really glad that you decided to relocate to Corpus Christi and became an asset to this team. I am unclear as to how we might have peeled back this onion without an extra set of eyes. So to know that you were able to sort of interweave all of the different pieces of this puzzle to now put them into a manageable, consumable bite that we can begin to address has been very, very valuable. And I think there's some lessons learned for us organizationally. I know that I sat in some meetings where we were trying to get some of this done, but we just couldn't get all the right pieces together at this higher level. So I really appreciate your continued diligence and just the miles that you've walked. I understand your experience lends itself to this kind of analytical deconstruction and reconstruction. And so we just appreciate what you brought to the table, and appreciate the staff now having identified that it's not a problem. I think that's been the biggest aha for all of us. It's not one problem that occurred. It wasn't one piece of broken software. Everybody had a little bit of accountability and responsibility in this, and I'm sure that everybody is stepping up, as you have pointed out, to relieve that. I mean, just to push it onto I felt so sorry for our utility billing office staff, because everybody kept going, well, it's yours. Well, clearly it wasn't them. It was a much broader over time, everybody got busy and forgot to go back and check the meters or whatever. And so now we're back in the analysis of how do we support the software. Technology can be your friend right up until the point that it's not. So appreciate what you've done.
Thank you. I did want to add just one point, is as we're going through these processes, we're putting checks and balances in there so we don't repeat history. There will be definitely a process to be proactive on preventive maintenance on the MTUs, the DCUs, everywhere we can put a process in place and SOPs, we're going to do it.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Collins. You mentioned the audit of the N4. So is that for the billing module or is it enterprise-wise?
This would be the whole entire enterprise application.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Roy?
Yes, thank you for your report. I just had one question. When you mentioned in the beginning at the first three type occurrences, you mentioned one where the bill was basically not generated, but generated maybe the next month or the following month. In that, so did that actually total up the usage? So let's say that you were at 25,000 gallons one month, and then the next month 25, but when that bill came out, you were charged in the 75,000 range?
That's exactly true. And that's why we call it the consolidated, because it just takes those 2 previous months, whatever the usage was, and adds it to the current month, and then the customer gets overcharged because the numbers are thrown off because they never used that in 1 month's time.
So that put them in the highest category?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
We appreciate, well, I'm not sure you know how much we appreciate you being here and helping this, and the receptiveness of the staff to respond, and kudos to all of you. And I think the public, like I said when I opened the comments, that I think the public has seen that we're aggressively trying to solve this problem. The number of contacts that at least I've had, and I think probably the rest of the council, has been reduced substantially. And the ultimate thing that the public needs to understand is that we will make it right with them in terms of the billing when all is said and done. That our goal is to make them whole if they've been overcharged and get credits or whatever. So the sooner that can happen, the better. But they need to know whenever it happens, we're going to take care of it. So, all right. Well, if that's, if you've got anything else, or
I just want to say I couldn't do all this if I didn't have people helping me within. Knowledge, it's like I don't get tired, and I know they realize I don't. So I'll keep drilling down until I get the information. And some people have the information, but they don't realize it. And other people do, and they just put it all out there. And if they weren't contributing in that way, it would take a little bit longer for me to get where I'm at with this. And also the support of the city manager has empowered me to have autonomy in the entire city-wide departments. So anybody I need at any time is at my beck and call, but I don't abuse that. It has to be for a valid reason. And yes, everything I'm involved in right now is urgent. So it's just the way it is. We need to put this to bed and get it behind us.
well, thank you very much, and we'll let you get back to work.
Yeah, here I go again. I'm going back to the salt mine.
There. Now, Mr. Selman, if you'll continue with your manager's report.
I've got a quick announcement, Mayor, and then a little bit of discourse and another presentation. But before that, let me announce the new Deputy Director of Solid Waste is David Layfeld.
David, welcome.
And Mayor, I'd like to now have a little bit of discussion and a presentation on Lake Corpus Christi Reservoir that was mentioned in public comment. As you all know, there's a joint effort and a cooperative effort in looking to ensure the integrity of the lake and the dam, as well as reducing flooding downstream. All of that is in consideration. There's a corporate effort in doing that. And I want to introduce two people on our team, Billy Delgado, who is involved in that corporate effort. Billy, if you'd come down, and also Gabriel Ramirez, who is also on the team. Gabriel will be walking through the presentation on all the things that are being done, and I'd like for Billy to just mention briefly the corporate, the cooperative effort that's being done, and who all is involved in that, and would you please? Yes.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. It's absolutely correct. City manager is, anytime that we go into a situation like this where it's multiple agencies and multiple jurisdictions, one of the main things we want to do is have cooperation, be transparent, let people know what we're doing, don't put ourselves in a box here. So beginning on September 17th, with the National Weather Service, we have had either a conference call or an email briefing every day concerning the river. So this is continuing to go on. We have another conference call at 3 o'clock today. Some of the major groups that are working with, and we've been in contact since then, is our city utility department, our police department, fire department, parks and recreation, everybody that would be involved in the situation there. Nueces County Emergency Management Coordinator and his team have been in the call or on the email every day, and we communicate on a regular basis, as well as San Patricio Emergency Management Coordinator and her team, Jim Wells, Emergency Management Coordinator, Annabelle Fire Chief and Assistant Fire Chief. Texas Department of Emergency Management has been on the call. They're aware of everything that's going on here. National Weather Service, obviously. Texas Department of Transportation has been on the call, and Coastal Bend Council of Governments. As you can see, that's the conglomerate of a lot of people, a lot of different agencies that we are talking. And as Gabriel said, the more information people have, the less questions they're going to have, and they see that we're being transparent on what's going on with our dam. We have also initiated reverse alert during this time. Our first one went out September 21st. We have initiated 9 notifications to the people living around the river, and they're in a group. It's the river notification system with David Lozano and his group getting that together. We've also put out a couple of reverse alerts to different subdivisions in Sandy Hollow, Nueces River, County Road 73, subdivision of Blunter River subdivision, which is the county requested that we do that. Again, working cooperation with them, getting the right message out, making sure that we're in sync with the message. One message, it goes out. One of the really coolest things that has happened through this, and it's been happening with the fire department, is the aerial team. Fire department aerial team. They've been going out regularly and giving the counties video of their areas. So in some cases, as such as the fire chief of Annabelle says, if we didn't have this, we wouldn't know what goes on behind the roads. So they're able to view the roads. They're able to view this. Jim Wells County, San Patricio, very appreciative because she's able to see what's going on. And obviously Nueces County. So it's been a cooperation, it's been a group effort, it's been a team effort. There's no one person that's not in the group. It's a team effort that's been going on as far as notifications, as far as the National Weather Service, as far as what we're doing as a team. And that's the way we look at it. We're a team, and we've been constantly doing this. And some of our aerial locations that have been requested has been County Road 73 in Oak Lane, County Road 73 in Nueces River, County Road 666 in Oak Lane, County Road 73 in Nueces River, and then the Wesley Seal Dam. And I believe at this time, we're going to be showing a video of the drones taken at the Wesley Seal Dam. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Gabriel Ramirez, Assistant Director of Water Quality and Treatment. What you're seeing here is our Wesley Seal Dam. In this picture here, video is from Sunday. We had 3 gates open there, releasing about 6,000 CFS or cubic feet per second being released there from the dam. And showing the water flowing there. All right, then we can go to the.
And so how we come to these locations is each day fire chief meets with the drone battalion chief, and they go over the locations at the recommendations of the county or jurisdiction that's requesting the flyover. So what happens is we have them email us, and then I email it to the chief, and then the chief gets with the aerial team, and then they decide which location they're going to hit at the time. So for us, the cooperation and the teamwork that's been going on is very valuable to this situation. So thank you very much.
All right, so I'm going to be giving you an update, situational update on Lake Corpus Christi water releases. Again, Gabriel Ramirez, Assistant Director of Water Quality and Treatment. So our three main objectives, we have three objectives that we have to execute when we're dealing with this type of situation. So our three objectives include public health and safety of residents downstream and around Wesley Seal Dam, maintaining the integrity of Wesley Seal Dam, and also to keep Lake Corpus Christi full or get it full and maintain it at that capacity as long as we can. Currently, Lake Corpus Christi is full at an elevation of 94 feet. The current release at Wesley Seal Dam is 4 gates open, or 8,000 cubic feet per second being released there from Wesley Seal Dam. Our combined capacity, including Choke Canyon Reservoir, is at 65.2%, with Lake Corpus Christi being at 100% full, and Choke Canyon Reservoir about 51.6% at this time. So this projections chart, it was actually developed by the National Weather Service, and it's following the elevation, it's showing the elevation of Lake Corpus Christi if we continue to release approximately 8,000 cubic feet per second. The top line there shows the Lake Corpus Christi elevation at 94 feet, that brown line there. And the dashed line above it, it shows what the lake level will be at if we continue releasing at 8,000 CFS over the next week or so. Operators at Wesley Seal Dam are going to be adjusting the releases as needed to release as much water that's flowing in to meet our three objectives again. The public health and safety of residents downstream and around Wesley Seal Dam, the integrity of Wesley Seal Dam, and also to keep Lake Corpus Christi full. Wesley Seal Dam can hold 94 feet of water. Once the elevation reaches 94.2 feet, which it did last night, we execute our gate operations plan to protect the integrity of Wesley Seal Dam. And that's when that objective becomes paramount. This slide here is showing a satellite overview of the wave coming in. We've had a couple of different waves of water coming toward Lake Corpus Christi that has gotten us full there. We utilize USGS or flow gauges at Nueces River near Asherton, which is north of Cotulla, at Cotulla, Tilden, and Three Rivers prior to the water reaching Lake Corpus Christi at Wesley Seal Dam. We reached the end of our first wave on Sunday, October 28th. The beginning of the second flood wave is actually currently downstream of Nueces River near Tilden and approaching Lake Corpus Christi. The end of the second flood wave is downstream of the Nueces River near Cotulla, and we're expecting this water to arrive here in the next day or two, and the flows are expected to remain the same for about a week or so, the next several days. And again, I can't stress enough our coordination with Billy and his team and all the other city departments and agencies surrounding Corpus Christi. And again, our three objectives: public health and safety of residents downstream and around Wesley Seal Dam, maintaining integrity of the dam, and keeping Lake Corpus Christi full. Those are the three objectives we go by, and we may implement the plans to make that happen. So I'm standing by for any questions.
All right, well, thank you very much. Mr. Garza?
Mr. Ramirez, after an event like this, and we've had several while I've been on the council, do we have, I guess, a scheduled assessment of the dam to see if we had any kind of failings or any kind of weaknesses occur after this pressure that's put on the dam itself?
Yes, so we have our staff are constantly evaluating the dam to ensure the integrity is where it needs to be. It's an earthen dam, so again, if we were to have way above 94.2 feet for a significant amount of time, then that's when the integrity could be in jeopardy. But we do have 60 gates that we're able to open up if needed. Currently, we only have the 4 gates. That's all that's needed at this time. And that helps us allows us to maintain the integrity of the dam by having the 4 gates open that we have.
We actually have inspectors come out and inspect the dam. I want to say it's every 5 years, and we recently had one. And we have that inspection report. And there's, in that report, there's things that we need to repair or fix or take action on. And we actually work with TCQ on that. And we just sent the TCQ a plan of action on what we're going to do to, and a timeline to make all the repairs that was actually found in the inspection of that dam.
Okay, so you've got a plan, basically, it's a scheduled, I guess, repair or action that we're gonna take?
Yeah, we do for maintenance and any deficiencies found during the inspection.
So then once you turn over, you submit that to TCQ, they either agree with you or they ask you to make modifications?
Well, they agreed with our plan and what we're doing, so at this point, it's a matter of just following through and making sure that we're actually gonna complete it. And some of them has to do with like sluice gates that we're working on, some electrical equipment, and that's really for both dams. Both dams get inspected, and then we make the appropriate repairs.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Opal?
Thank you very much. You know, it's always a challenge to balance the needs of the dam and be respectful of the downstream residents who are having to contend with that high water level. The proximity to water and people is always a bit problematic. So whether you live on the coast or on the river, sometimes it comes back and causes that problem. I just wanted to point out one thing. It's always something I feel strongly about, because you talked about the 2 surface water lakes that we're managing right now, but we do have 2 additional surface water lakes that we pull from. So I was just curious in terms of our Lower Colorado and our Lake Texana, how are we doing in terms of their resource for us right now?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm glad you brought that up. So with our calculations of the combined capacity, we include Lake Corpus Christi and Choke Canyon Reservoir. So this is a question of flow versus volume. Volume is what we care about on Lake Corpus Christi, Choke Canyon. The flow is what we're more concerned about on Lake Texana and Lower Colorado River. For Lake Texana, we're contracted out 31,440 acre feet per year from Lake Texana. Lower Colorado River, we have the Garwood right. We're second priority there behind Garwood Irrigation Company, and we're allowed 35,000 acre feet per year run of the river right, so not stored water. So the water actually has to be flowing in order for us to get it from there. So again, in doing the calculations, the volume versus flow, it's a key component there. We do have the 4 sources, and currently we're using about half of our source is coming from the Mary Roads pipeline. The other is coming from Nueces River.
And right now we're all good, right? Because it's been raining and they've been getting some of the benefit from the weather that's been moving through. So
They have as well. So we have the ability to pull from there. We actually just met last week to implement our plan for 2019 of how we're going to pull and manage our raw water sources and what percentages we're going to pull per month and that kind of thing. And that's definitely fresh on our minds.
Well, I just think it's always important when we talk about water in this community, that the citizens of Corpus Christi had enough forethought and willingness to go in with this, because when times like this occur, we have an abundance of water, and it's a good opportunity, good time to be us. So thank you for all that you do to manage it.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
Thank you. So as I understand it, we're releasing 8,000 cubic feet a second currently?
Yes, sir.
And you plan on maintaining that?
That's the plan at this time.
Do you have an idea what our record release was? So we know we're releasing 8,000, but what the dam did at its...
So I know in 2015 we had 7 gates open,
Okay.
which is closer to 12 to 14,000 CFS
Okay,
at
so
that time.
So we're doing about half then. Probably Beulah in September of 1967 was the record, but I think all 60 gates were open then. Wait, Mark, you're nodding your head. So
Okay.
This is really a small fraction of what our record release has been. Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Any other comment? I think, in layman's terms, we talk about the management and all this, the bottom line is, and some people, and I've gotten several calls, why are you releasing water from Lake Corpus Christi? Well, the reality is, we got a 10-gallon bucket and we're trying to put 100 gallons in it. And so, rather than dumping all 100 gallons at one time on the people downstream, we're trying just to let a little flow out and just kind of balance it and even it so we just don't totally devastate those downstream. And one of the questions, and this would be something that would be of interest, and we don't need to get into it now, but you mentioned, I think, in 15 or earlier, we did a little bit of this release balancing. Say over the, and you may be able, Dan, to go back and look at the charts. Historically, well, I guess since Choke Canyon got here is really when we didn't need to do it, is how many of these occurrences have we had in the balancing of releasing water to make room for more water coming down from Choke Canyon? Well, it really wouldn't be, our releases have nothing to do with Choke Canyon. It'd be if Choke Canyon got full and was flooding, then you'd really have a problem. But
Yeah, so it's the water coming from Asherton and
Yeah,
Petula,
okay.
Tilton.
so, because several people have suggested, even in the public comment period today, over time, why don't we just build a pipeline and pump it back to Choke Canyon and fill it up? Well, that's a whole different in terms of physics and dynamics and engineering and cost. But, I mean, these types of things don't happen but every 3 to 5 or maybe longer years, where you have this imbalance of more water coming into Lake Corpus Christi than you can handle. And the cost to build a pipeline to push water uphill for 90 miles on a 5-year cycle would be a pretty expensive proposition to go back up there and just evaporate. And that would be one of the factors. The second one is, I guess one of the pluses, and I don't know how it figures in since this is October and November getting into it, but at some point we should be getting credit for future releases based on the salinity levels and the volumes that we're putting out. So I'm sure, I'm assuming that it has some impact in the future months when we get into the summer of next year. Maybe it doesn't carry over that far. I don't know the formula for all the releases, but at some point, if we could get an update on maybe when all this is passed through, how this really impacts us in terms of the mandated releases. Because if people will go to that NOAA website, no, it's the Nueces River daily flow chart, I mean, people would just be astounded at the amount of water that's lost from to evaporation. I mean, it's mind-boggling the amount of money that's, money too, but how much water is lost to evaporation. And so this business of pumping it 90 miles uphill just to sit there and evaporate, and there be no revenue gotten out of it and really would serve no benefit. But I think it sounds logical, and it sounds like good common sense, but the reality of it, but there's got to be something a little more concrete that we might be able to explain that at some point in the future, but it's too deep to get into now. But it'd be kind of interesting, because it's going to come up every time it happens. It just makes common sense. If you overflow in here, pump it over here and save it. But there's a whole lot more to it than that. But anyway, well, thank you very much. And I know the people downstream are appreciative, even though they get flooded. Most of them are up high enough that if it's a 2 or 3 feet, it doesn't put them out. But if it's a 10 or 12 foot, then that's a big problem. So thank you very much. Anything else, Mr. Selman?
No, Mayor.